All right, let's move on to exercise number 2. This one, I can tell you, is the topic is going to be climate change. But remember what I said. What I want is when you tell me what the topic is, try to be a bit more specific. Try to answer the question, what exactly is it about climate change that this lecture is focusing on? Okay, good luck. Let's go.
There can now be no reasonable science-based doubt about the reality of global climate change effects brought on by the cumulative and rapidly growing emission of so-called greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. As these effects become increasingly more obvious worldwide, so commercial interests, groups of concerned individuals, and national governments have been gripped by what amounts to mass panic about what to do about it. To many, Paul Ehrlich's Malthusian population bomb of 1968 appears about to explode in the world's face in an indirect version of his millenarian vision of population growth, which outpaces agricultural production capacity with predictably catastrophic results for humanity. And his 3-part crisis scenario does indeed seem now to be present: a rapid rate of change, a limit of some sort, and delays in perceiving that limit. Ehrlich's work was roundly criticised at the time and later from many quarters, and much of what he predicted did not come about. Nevertheless, can the world afford to take the risk that the climate scientists have got it wrong? Is it not in everyone's interest to apply the precautionary principle in attempting to avoid the worst of their predictions now rather than at some future time? As the chairman of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Mr. Rajendra Pachauri, has recently pointed out, 11 of the warmest years since instrumental records began have occurred in the past 12, while major precipitation changes are taking place on a global scale.
Okay, there we go. Now, there was a lot of information that you just heard. Okay, but keep in mind that realistically, you want to be cutting out probably about 3/4 of it. Okay, you want to keep like maybe the top 25% of the most important information there, which means that you're not going to be able to cover every single detail. So part of your job is to try to identify which ones are the important points. Can you divide this lecture into different parts, right? Different like big talking points. All right, let's see. Ivy, would you like to have a go?
Yes.
Hello, how are you today?
Okay, I'm good.
Fantastic. So what I'll do is I'll guide you through a couple of quick questions. Rather than getting you to like summarize it on the spot, I'll just ask a couple of questions and see how many of these you can answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is, we know that this is talking about climate change. What's the general idea that the guy is talking about?
I only can remember like at the very first beginning of the topic, he mentioned that the climate change is caused by the emissions of greenhouse gas.
Beautiful, right? So that's something we can write down. So climate change is caused by greenhouse gas emissions. Excellent. Right. So this is very much like what you normally expect in a bit of an intro thing, like a bit of background information to ease us into the topic. Excellent. Then after that, what did he say?
Like the increase of the like emissions of greenhouse gas is coming from like commercial or individual reasons.
That's
something
right.
Like
that's right. So we have like this section where you might say intro plus some explanations and stuff like that. I'm just going to group that up into kind of one section. Let's call that part 1.
Okay.
Okay. So first part is talking about, you know, where climate change comes from, all that good stuff, right? Now, part number 2, I would describe it as something to do with predictions. Do you remember what he said about the predictions?
Is it about like the indirect vision of population growth?
Yes, so there was a lot of different people and like, international groups and stuff that were mentioned in here, right? But one thing I tell people is try not to worry too much about name drops. Okay, so if I say Professor Peters from Sao Paulo University, or if I said the International Commission on Climate Change or something, you can think of these as just names, right? Think of these as just random people, right? You're not expected to remember all of them. My point though is that random people will never really be part of the main point. The main point, part 2, was something to do with predictions. Do you remember what we were talking about in terms of climate change predictions?
Sorry, I'm lost in the first part. In the second part.
Not too sure? That's okay. So I can tell you that the answer to the second part was something like
Future
past, right? Some guy, we'll just call it in the past, some person, right, whose name we definitely don't remember, right, made a lot of predictions about climate change, right? So he was kind of telling this story in the past. A guy made a lot of predictions about climate change, many of which didn't.
3? Are they 3 like predictions?
Yes, there were 3 predictions, right?
I can remember.
Yeah, so we remember there was 3. Now, those things were very technical and they kind of passed them really quickly. But the idea was that not all of his predictions came true. Okay, and so right now, so therefore, right, there is doubt, right? So people doubt this climate change catastrophe kind of thing, right? And then part 3 is kind of a response to that. So the speaker gives a bit of an opinion about climate change. He has like his own advice or recommendation. Do you remember what that is at the end?
No, sorry. I only can remember like one of the predictions is about limited sources, something like that.
Yes, that's true, right? It was talking about limited sources. It was talking about, I think the other one was ways to kind of address it in advance.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So that's an example of some of the very technical stuff. I don't think it's really necessary for you to say it. At least this probably would not be in the top 25% of the information. Right? How about this? You know what? We could just rewind and play the last section again for you.
Okay.
That might be an easy.
Can the world afford to take the risk that the climate scientists have got it wrong? Is it not in everyone's interest to apply the precautionary principle in attempting to avoid the worst of their predictions now rather than at some future time?
What's that saying? So he's basically saying, his idea is we should be cautious, right? In his words, take precautions, right? So the speaker believes that even if the prediction is wrong, we should still probably be cautious just in case.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And then we have one final part, which is kind of him talking about what we can be doing.
As the chairman of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Mr. Rajendra Pachauri has recently pointed out.
So that's an example of a big name drop, right? He's chairman of something, his name is Mr. whatever. You can just basically skip by all that stuff, right? But the important thing is what he said. So what did he say? Let's see.
11 of the warmest years since instrumental records began have occurred in the past 12, while major precipitation changes are taking place on a global scale.
All right, what's that talking about? Said 11 of the 12 of, yeah, so what's the general idea there? 11 of the 12 hottest years have taken place in the last decade or something, and there's major precipitation changes or something across the world. What's that? What is that trying to say?
Like some of the predictions may be true or something.
Yeah, so there's evidence that climate change is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, we might say also there is evidence that climate change is real, right? So temperature, right, precipitation, all that kind of stuff, right? So what you might say is one thing I like to get you guys to practice is doing a little bit of light paraphrasing. Of course, it's okay for you to directly take keywords like 11 of the 12 hottest years or something like that. You can always say things like that, but if you really want to catch the main idea, it is usually a good idea to kind of zoom out a little bit and try to figure out what the general ideas that's being presented in the lecture. Okay, and it's basically just some proof, right? This scientist guy, this chairman, right, he's basically saying, I've got some proof, right, that, you know, the climate change and the temperature stuff is actually happening. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's the entire thing from start to finish. Excellent. Now, in the interest of saving time, I might not do like a full summary like this for each one of these, but as you can imagine, if I were to do a summary, it would contain these keywords. Also, you might notice some of these lectures contain more information than others. Some of them will be a bit more complex. So depending on how many points there are, the length of my summary may change a little bit. So it'll be somewhere between 50 to 70 words. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Ivy. Well done.